we wouldn't be open without CEF, without Vision of Hope. It just wouldn't happen. Our families can't afford it.
It's hope for our families here at St. Michael's. They come here, they feel safe.
And no matter what school that we have, if you have worked in it, you consistently feel that family spirit.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Katie Kevorkian, and I am the Associate Director of Development at the Catholic Education Foundation. Today, I am absolutely thrilled to welcome the team from Vision of Hope, which is an organization that was founded by the Dominican sisters to provide quality, affordable Catholic education for students in 8 inner-city elementary schools in Los Angeles and Northern California. Very excited, has a very similar mission to CEF. We serve a lot of the same people, and we have some great people from Vision of Hope joining us today, and some other supporters of Vision of Hope I'm seeing on here as well. Yvonne Navarro, who is a tireless supporter of Catholic schools, is here as a guest, and we're really excited. Thank you, Yvonne, for being here. And also, I see we have Therese Funk, who also is a supporter of Catholic schools. Lynn Hook, thank you so much for being here again today. Lynn has come to a lot of our Coffee with CEF. And Julie Dwyer, who also works for Vision of Hope. So, and everybody else who's here today, we're just really, really excited to see you, and we thank you so much for coming. And if this is your first time with a Coffee with CEF, I want to reach out to you and welcome you, and thank you so much for joining us today. So, to give you a little bit of background about the Catholic Education Foundation, we provide tuition assistance to thousands of students every year, and that's thanks to the help of our donors. So we hope that this special event that we're offering now can help you see personally how that tuition assistance impacts the families, the students, the teachers, the principals, and the entire community that we serve in Los Angeles. And this morning, I'm really excited to welcome guests from Vision of Hope. We are very fortunate this morning to be joined by Mcgovern, who has been the Executive Director of Vision of Hope since 2015 and has worked extensively in education and social justice as a secondary English and religion teacher, an organizer for Faith in Action in Oakland, the Executive Director of the Ignatian Solidarity Network, and President of St. Martin de Porres Elementary School in West Oakland. We also have Sister Georgette Coulombe from the Los Angeles Vision of Hope office. Sister Georgette is an alumna of St. Michael's and Ascension Elementary Schools in South Los Angeles and St. Michael's Girls High School, which is unfortunately no longer there, but was a girls' high school in South Los Angeles. She has served as a classroom teacher, elementary school principal, and high school administrator. And we have 2 principals who serve at Vision of Hope schools, Anabel Rodriguez and Ileana Wade. Anabel has been at St. Michael's Elementary School for 20 years, 7 years as a principal and 13 as a teacher. She's also a parent of 2 St. Michael's alumna. Ileana is completing her 34th year in Catholic education and has been at St. Ignatius for 21 years, and she's finishing her 4th year as principal. She and 2 of her daughters are alumna of St. Ignatius as well. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. You all have so many numerous connections to the schools and the areas that you serve. I have a lot of questions for you this morning. I can't wait to hear from you. My first question is, what have you got to drink this morning, and what's in your cup? Anne, can you show us?
I'm very boring this morning. All I have is water in my little mug. I've had my coffee already, Katie.
All right. Sister Georgette?
I have hot chocolate in my favorite cup, which is a cup that has children on it from one of the schools.
Beautiful. Anabel?
Good morning. I have my caramel macchiato on my Wonder Woman cup. Thank you.
Nice. And Ileana?
Good morning. I have my Christmas Joy cup, and it has a whole lot of vanilla creamer and a little bit of coffee and cinnamon. Cheers.
Sounds delicious. Yes. Cheers, everyone. Welcome. Thank you guys for coming. But first of all, I want to ask Sister Georgette a question. I'm hoping that you could tell us a little bit about why Vision of Hope was founded and about the Dominican charism.
Certainly, I'm happy to. In 1995, the Dominican Sisters of Mission San Jose held a general chapter. A general chapter is a gathering every 5 years where the sisters evaluate their lives, their ministerial responsibilities, and plan for the future. Because of national concern about Catholic school closures at the 1995 general chapter, the major focus for ministry was what to do about our schools. The sisters discussed for numerous hours trying to grapple with approaches and solutions for helping our schools. These schools were in our hearts, and in commitment to our charism, we were determined to try our best to continue being women of the word who bring Catholic education to the youth, especially the poor and the vulnerable. This was the spirit that shaped the Dominican Sisters of Mission San Jose in 1995. In these gatherings, it is very difficult to acquire consensus from 180 women. When we vote, we use colored cards: green for yes, red for no, and yellow for caution. We were shocked when the final vote was taken. It was a sea of green that made our decision unanimous. We would help our schools. How was Vision of Hope born? There were 8 schools identified as needing significant support, 3 in Northern California and 5 in Southern California. The sisters' plan was to subsidize the schools for 3 years by opening regional development offices and hiring regional development directors. The Dominican Sisters Foundation would assist in development efforts. The congregational leadership then assigned Sister John Martin Fixa as the executive director. Sister John Martin lived by the principle that nothing is an obstacle, everything is a possibility, and friends will help, so build relationships. So with the help of school principals, alumni from Dominican schools, lay partners, many supportive friends, and her sheer determination to fulfill the dream or mission, Sister John Martin formed a Vision of Hope steering committee, regional advisory boards, and directed each school to establish a development board. At one point, the congregational leadership assigned Sister Barbara Larner to be the development director in South Los Angeles. She too believed in building relationships, seeking help from foundations, and organizing fundraising events. In 2000, Vision of Hope, under the leadership of Sister John Martin, took the bold step of launching a major campaign for the 8 Vision of Hope schools. By 2005, $8 million had been raised for a permanent endowment to support tuition assistance. Today, these 8 schools remain supported by Vision of Hope's permanent endowment and annual fundraising. And now the dream goes on.
Thank you, Sister Georgette. We understand that Vision of Hope has been in operation for 25 years. What's been the impact over those 25 years?
I am happy to report one of the activities that goes on in the schools involves the children, to teach them to give back. And it's called Coins for Kids. And so they have fundraising activities during the year. And in the 25 years, over $750,000 has been raised from the children. And that's all of the Dominican schools participating. Then 50,000 students have received our help and have had a good education. And the donor generosity is beyond description as far as we are concerned. Over $16 million has been given in tuition assistance. I think that's impact.
That is a lot of impact. Thank you. That's amazing. And I would love to hear you describe how the Vision of Hope sees the schools as a community of schools and the governance model that is seen throughout the schools.
Thanks, Katie. And thanks to everybody for joining this today. This is exciting for our team to be able to share a little bit about Vision of Hope. When I listened to Sister Georgette retell the history, it is a great reminder to me of the step that the sisters took in 1995 when many other religious orders weren't able to move towards their schools. They were diversifying ministries, but the Dominican sisters really decided to move closer to the most vulnerable schools they had once taught in. And that step really, to me, speaks of the sense of community. And the word that we use today in 2020 to describe the relationship of the 8 Vision of Hope schools is that we are a community of schools, founded by the community and the Dominican sisters. But that community spirit is really what drives the relationship. And that's somewhat, I guess I share that's somewhat different, or maybe kind of in contrast to in the last 5 years, there are emerging trends across the country of private kind of networks of schools, independent networks of schools that are being founded to address, vulnerable inner city Catholic schools and how best to manage and fundraise and streamline their governance, moving them from like a traditional parish school into this kind of network model. And that has seen tremendous success. The Vision of Hope and the Dominican sisters don't see that that's actually our path. We were really founded to be a community of schools through the tradition of the Dominican sisters. So what binds them together is this sense of charism and mission. And we don't govern the schools. So the Vision of Hope does not hire or supervise the principals. They are 8 schools located in 3 different dioceses and archdioceses, managed by those respective leaders and pastors. And so we continue to kind of operate and support the schools in that model because we think that's really best suited for our founding and really suited for our future. We don't want to, I think at this point, extend into a governing model of those schools. I think we have found success and with the flexibility that we're able to work with them in their local diocese. I will say though, it is interesting to point out of the 8 schools we operate in or fund, and it's only these 8 schools that were identified as Sister Georgette said. There aren't any other Dominican schools that were founded to support. Of the 8, 6 are still in the traditional parish model, 5 of which are in Los Angeles. We have 1 school in Oakland that is part of an independent network called the Lumen Christi Academies. And so that school is now being managed by a board of directors and no longer under the guidance of that diocese. And then we have a 2nd school in San Francisco that is under the direction of its superintendent and is not a parish school any longer. So we're certainly seeing that shift happen even in these 8. And I think our fidelity to the model we were founded for is still going to be a strength to these schools as they adjust in their local diocese to what may be other governance changes in the future.
What is the current and future vision for school funding? And I hope that you could tell us a little bit more about how you differ from the Catholic Education Foundation and what your funding looks like and how it's different, but also really needed for these schools.
Right. So currently, what we have done for the last 25 years is really, as Sister Georgette said, we were founded to support tuition assistance needs. And that has been our primary mission. And those currently our schools are funded at about between 100 to 150,000 per year at each school. And the funding model for that those are funds that are given directly to the school. So kind of in contrast to CEF, we don't do any families are not applying to Vision of Hope directly. We allocate those funds to our principals and schools, and they allocate it to kids and families in their schools as needed. And very often, our principals can share this, but very often our funds are most used for families who aren't able to receive CEF or need money in addition to CEF. So I think we're a really good complement to what CEF is doing for the 5 schools in LA. And going forward, I guess, to speak to kind of the next 25 years for Vision of Hope, we want to continue to support tuition assistance. And then we're also looking at raising money for programmatic initiatives. We have gotten 4 of the 8 schools are involved in blended learning that have been funded by Vision of Hope. And we're also beginning, we stepped out on a ledge in January to launch a larger campaign for our 8 schools in memory of Sister Johnny. And then we hit the crisis that we're facing in terms of COVID-19, and we're on a pause and trying to reevaluate how to move that forward. But our hope is to raise a significant portion of funds for more programmatic initiatives in what we're calling an innovation fund.
So we have a short video.
Great. Yeah.
All right.
As a child, I remember walking to my school, Santa Teresita, with my father, and I realized I would not have been able to receive such an incredible education had it not been for Vision of Hope. My family lived in a poor community of East Los Angeles, and so quite honestly, a Catholic education just wasn't in the cards for us. The Dominican sisters were integral in providing me with an empowering environment for me to thrive faithfully, emotionally, socially, and as a result, here I am as a principal of a high school. As a principal of the school, I had the opportunity to send our son just about anywhere, but I knew right away that with the love and care of the Dominican sisters and the tremendous academic environment of a Vision of Hope school, that this was the right place for him.
It's fun how all the kids care for each other, and the teachers teach us how to be good kids in and out of school. I know it costs a lot of money to go here, and not a lot of kids get the chance that I have. My teachers and my principal really care for me. They even called me before one of my cross-country races to wish me good luck. I love the friendships that I have with my friends here, and I think more and more kids should come to Vision of Hope schools.
The mission that Sister Maria Pia gave us was to serve the young, the poor, and the vulnerable. In the 10 years that I have been principal at the school where I am currently ministering, we have had a 100% graduation rate. Not one student has dropped out. When Vision of Hope began, we were intent on saving 8 of our schools, and we have wonderful news. All of them are still open.
When you walk into our classrooms, you see teacher-direct instruction, students working collaboratively, and students working on their computers. We're helping our students overcome the lack of technological resources they have at home by providing Chromebooks, iPads, online programs, coding classes, and an updated STEM lab. Thanks to Vision of Hope, we're able to provide a 21st century education so that our students can be successful in high school, college, and beyond.
When I joined St. Michael's board, the school was struggling. Enrollment was down, and they were in financial straits. But Vision of Hope was always there for us. They never gave up hope. With their help, the school rebuilt their enrollment and is now thriving. The school is close to full capacity with waiting lists in many grades. When I was asked to join the Vision of Hope board, I was honored to continue the legacy of the Dominican sisters. How could I not want to pay it forward to help make a difference for all 8 Vision of Hope schools? There are so many more families who want to attend one of our Vision of Hope schools, and their future depends on your giving. Help us share a Vision of Hope.
And I wanted to turn it over now to our principals who are joining us today, Anabel and Ileana. Ileana, I hope you could start and tell us, what is the impact of the Vision of Hope relationship for you and your school specifically?
Sure. At St. Ignatius and at the Vision of Hope schools, of course, the financial support is so needed. We wouldn't be open without CEF, without Vision of Hope. It just wouldn't happen. Our families can't afford it. But beyond that, I think the most significant impact is the relationships. In watching that video, my 8th grade principal, my principal from when I was in 8th grade, was there. She passed away a few years ago, Sister Mara Ann. And it just, again, sparked that word, relationships. I think Vision of Hope, Ann said it too, is about building relationships and making sure that all students have the opportunity to continue their education. And I think that is something that the Dominican sisters have held as an important value forever since Mother Pia came out to California. So I think for us, it's really about relationships and about the ability to educate so many more children that would not have had the opportunity.
And Anabel, do you have anything to add about the impact at St. Michael?
So I feel a little bit like Ileana, but I do, like I said in the video before, it's hope for our families here at St. Michael's. They come here, they feel safe. It's a family-oriented, as you can see. Our children even came to Vision of Hope schools. So it's that family embracement that you feel. I'm blessed that Sister Georgette hired me 20 years ago, and I'm still here, trying to continue with their charism, with everything they started. So it's actually a blessing to be able to welcome new families into our school and continue embracing and passing down the charism of the Dominican sisters. So it's a great impact for our families.
Obviously, Anabel and Ileana, you've had to do an incredible pivot since, probably second week of March and change a lot of things. Anabel, could you tell us about some of the successes and challenges that you've experienced at St. Michael?
I think we have many successes. I think we've been very blessed to be able to collaborate with CSC, LMU Ideal, and other programs. But I think right now that I felt a very good success that I can talk about is the support from CPLA, Counseling Partners of LA, which is Trace, which is on here. Having them be able to communicate with our students that are having a hard time at home, calling them to see how they're doing, giving them resources so that they feel that they're not alone. That was a really good impact for us, getting feedback from the parents telling us, thank you for having them calling to see how they're doing. How are they feeling, helping them cope with this whole situation. So I think that was one of our successes that I'm very thankful for.
And Ileana, do you have anything to add?
Sure. I think I can tell you exactly when this started. It was March 12th at 4:30 something that we got the email that said, close it down for 2 weeks. And at that time, we weren't in a panic because we kind of saw it coming. So we had already started thinking about it. So I think that was a success that we kind of already were thinking about that. And the challenge, of course, was making sure everybody had technology that was working and that iPads were up to, there were all these little things that needed to be taken care of on a daily basis. But successes were that the teachers and the kids and the parents rose to the occasion. And even when it was really hard, everybody kept going. We had already been working on, for the last 2 years, a graduate defense presentation for our 8th graders. They were all going to present in front of a panel, very formal, their defense for graduating from our school. And this kind of threw a big change in our plans. And my 8th grade teacher said, no, we're still going to do it. We figured out a way to do it online, and our students amazed us. They really grew even through this difficult time and adapted and showed us that they were truly ready to graduate, and they understood the expectations of our school and they had met them. So that was, I think, a great success.
Ileana and Anabel, two of our great principals. I wanted to recognize, all 5 of our schools. I don't know if we said we're St. Francis Cabrini, St. Michael's, St. Ignatius, Santa Teresita, and Sacred Heart are the 5 in LA. And in particular, Sister Maria Elena is on the call, principal at Sacred Heart. She's been principal of Sacred Heart through the entire time of Vision of Hope for 25 years. And I just wanted to, give a shout out to her and her leadership, and also just point out that one of the transitions Vision of Hope is experiencing is just this transition from religious leader to lay, being more of a lay-led organization, both in our schools and in the organization. And we do that with a lot of grace and prayers with the sisters. It's not an easy transition, as anybody can imagine, but it is part of our story right now. And I think Sister Maria Elena really, kind of symbolizes that to us right now. She'll be the last Dominican sister of our Vision of Hope schools to be principal. So we're so grateful for her and grateful for the legacy. And as you can see with Anabel and Ileana and Ms. Hart at Cabrini and our other principals, they're taking the mantle and moving it forward.
Katie, and I think that's one of our way of being successful, that they trust us and we're able to move on with our teachers. With all these supports that we're getting, I think Vision of Hope schools were ready to move on. With all this LMU Ideal support, CSC, we had everything already going on at our schools that we felt, we can do this, and we stepped right into it, and our teachers were on board. And that was a very good success in our part, that our children were ready to move on because they were already exposed to it here at school. It was a challenge that they were not here collaborating with their friends, they were not with their teachers, but they were able to see each other from far away, at least through computer.
The relationships that we've built, I said relationships is, so important. The relationships that we have as principals as well. Anabel and I collaborate, we talk to each other, we bounce ideas off of each other. And I have other wonderful principal friends all around the Archdiocese. And these relationships is what keeps us going on those really, really difficult days.
So Ileana and then Anabel, what are you hearing from parents about re-enrollment for the fall? This is a question from Lynn Hook, who is in our audience.
Well, parents weren't able to come in and sign contracts like we usually do when we usually do it, but we've reached out to every family. We've, spoken to everyone individually, and I think, with the exception of a couple of parents who are struggling financially and just can't see themselves back in paying for tuition, and we reach out and say, we have Vision of Hope, we have support, but I have almost everyone returning at this time, and we just need to fill some spaces in our TK and Kinder, which is a challenge because we're not quite sure how the new year is going to look. So we want kids, but can we have them? That's the question.
And Anabel, how is it going at St. Michael?
I am happy to say I do have already 236 enrolled. So right now we're in the planning process of maybe moving hybrid, making sure they're getting the education, plus they're also secure. So we're looking to see how we can arrange everything. I still have parents coming in, even from other schools, public schools, KIPP schools, because like I said, I think we were ready and we moved forward. They were able to see how Vision of Hope schools got on board, and we were right there on Monday already doing Zoom with our students. So I think that talked very well about us, and that's what's keeping our numbers go up higher. It's just now that accommodating due to the situation.
Mm-hmm. And I think also parents talk. I got emails from the beginning saying, wow, my friends whose kids are in public school were stalled for 3 or 4 weeks. They were trying to figure out what they were doing, and you guys kept going, and the teachers have been so gracious, and hopefully that word gets around too. I think it has. I think parents are coming in to our schools to find out what makes us different.
Yes.
I have a question that I want to direct now to Sister Georgette. All of you seem to have a lot of family connections and legacies related to Vision of Hope and Dominican Sisters schools. You guys all are these living embodiments of why these Vision of Hope, Dominican Sisters schools are such wonderful places for education. But Sister Georgette, you were the principal for many years at St. Michael, which is a school that you attended as a child. Could you tell us a bit about your experience with that?
That was like coming home. My parents graduated from the school, and way back in the 20s. And then my brother and I started in the school, but then we built our home 2 miles away. So we went over to Ascension, from which I graduated. And that time, St. Michael's High School girls opened up. And so I just went back home. So once I graduated, entered the sisters, and did a few assignments, all of a sudden they asked me to come back to St. Michael's. Well, that was a simple yes. I came back to what is home. And my classmates from the high school, their children were in the school. I knew families from my days as a high school student. The parish was very tight and close bonded. So it was very simple. And no matter what school that we have, if you have worked in it, you consistently feel that family spirit. I was 15 years at St. Michael's, and then I went to St. Ignatius, and I was 10 years there. So 25 years adds up quickly, but you don't even notice it when you're feeling comfortable. And so I was privileged to work in all the schools that I worked in. There's always been a family spirit.
Thank you, Sister Georgette. And Ileana, I know you have a really interesting family story about St. Ignatius. Could you share about the generations that have come from St. Ignatius in your family?
Sure. I graduated from St. Ignatius in some time ago. And so when my children were in grade school, we moved, I was asked to come back and teach 8th grade, and I debated about bringing them, pulling them out of the school they were at St. Charles in North Hollywood. And they said, let's go, Mom, let's do something different. So they kind of spearheaded, and we went there. And my oldest daughter was in 6th grade and graduated. And at the time there was a boy in 8th grade that was the grandson of our 5th grade teacher. And they spent time together because we had meetings and they had to hang out together. And he graduated and went off on his own. And years later, they encountered each other when my daughter was waiting tables at a restaurant, and his whole family came in, and his grandmother said, "Are you dating anyone?" "He's not dating anyone. Why don't you guys see each other?" And she kind of arranged a situation, and the result is now that we have a 7-month-old grandson named Dominic, interestingly enough, who is our joy. And again, relationships, something so wonderful that comes out of a place that we love, a place where my children grew up, a place where I grew up, and the connections are never ending.
That's wonderful. And hopefully Dominic in 5 years will be on his way to also be a graduate of St.
That'd be wonderful.
I have another question I want to pose to Sister Georgette, and this is about Vision of Hope. Can you talk about the schools and their development boards and what that looks like for the Vision of Hope schools in that model?
Basically, that was the condition under which we established the offices. We knew that we couldn't subsidize forever, but we felt that if we could get them in the process of development directors as well as boards, then they could begin to kind of fly on their own, with us giving them support where we could. And that is a difficult situation. Some of our boards are doing very well, and some of our boards are having trouble. So we haven't solved that problem totally. But we're the firm believers that in order to have the schools secure, they need an on-site group who will work with them and do what they can do for them. The development directors writing grants, the development directors connecting programs, connecting with us. We train through workshops. We train development directors. We take the principals to the administrators conference in Santa Cruz. So we try to stay there to be of help to them. But that is a concern to us, to have strong development boards. And we haven't solved the problem.
And Anabel and I are happy to welcome anyone who would like to be on our development boards. We'll even share you.
Definitely.
Right. No, it is important to put that invitation out there. Our schools always are looking for local leadership to help with their local development boards. It still remains the sole requirement for our funding is that there's at least a minimum of a part-time development director and some form of a development board raising funds locally.
Santa Teresita has a wonderful board. Yvonne Navarro is the president. That board is very cohesive and concerned about the school, and that's one of the poorest schools in the Archdiocese. So if we didn't have the Santa Teresita Development Board, it would be another question of how do we help?
That's right.
So there are friends who have set up relationships for years. Yvonne and her husband are graduates of Santa Teresita, and they came back to give forward, I guess I should say. So we are very grateful to them and their board.
Thank you. I got another question from the audience for Ileana and Anabel. What are you going to do differently in the fall? And what kind of changes are you anticipating with your reopen for next school year? Ileana?
After I cry? It's been a lot of just waiting and listening. You know, I haven't really made any big decisions because we have to wait to get directions from the Department of Catholic Schools, and they're trying to see how this is all going to go down. And you know, the hope is that we can return face to face, but we also have to take into account our own vulnerable community, our children who may not be able to come to school. We have to devise a way of meeting the expectations and the social, you know, the distancing. And so for us, I think I'm really going to be listening to what Anabel is doing. She has a bigger school community, so her challenges are different, but she's also very innovative. So I really count on her to take the lead. In fact, when I became principal, I think it was Anne that said, you need to connect with the principal of St. Michael's. Her name is Anabel. And I was like, okay, sure. But I really, really think bouncing ideas off of each other differently. We're going to possibly have a hybrid situation. You know, we're looking into, do we videotape our teachers? Do we go live? How comfortable are people doing that? There's a lot of questions, I think, to answer.
Thank you, Ileana. But we do collaborate a lot. And I think that's where we said that family oriented. I have 3 different scenarios, but I think the most positive one would probably be hybrid. 2 days at school, 2 days at home. They're able to come and experience it with the teachers, with less kids at school, because they're able to do it at home. So now it's the planning of, okay, how many devices are we keeping at school? How many devices can we send out with those students? We already have an idea of how many students will be needing the technology at home due to this whole situation in March. So we have an idea. Now it's planning, okay, teachers have to record, put up so that the 2 days that they're not here, they're able to do at home. So this whole planning, it's taking some time, but we do collaborate with other principals and with Ileana, bouncing back and forth. We already have a date to when to plan as our deanery, planning, okay, how are we gonna do this? How are we gonna plan it? Is it gonna work for our school? And getting feedback from the teachers as well, so that they can feel that they own it. Because if they don't own the whole plan, it won't work. Right. So we really need them to go follow us and say, you know what, this is what's gonna work for us. We already started talking with our teachers and dividing our groups, having students come in the summer to test the new students so we can know where to group them to better help our students is the best way right now. So definitely, I think it's hybrid. I already started telling most of our parents, and they said as long as they come to school at least twice a week, it's fine with us. Now it's seeing how we can also incorporate the music and the PE during this time.
I also asked at my parent Zoom meeting that any parents who maybe had a little bit more knowledge about the virus and everything that's going on to join me as part of a task force to get parent involvement as well. I think if the parents provide ideas, they have more buy-in, they feel invested. And so that's something that that I'm also looking to get support from that group, my parents. And, you know, just listening to other principals and the ideas that they're throwing around. One principal that I know is thinking, you know, maybe the junior high will work from home, and that leaves the school rooms more available to spread out the younger students who really need to be at school. Maybe the junior high comes, you know, once a week for socializing, for that aspect, but they are more adept at working from home. They transitioned very quickly because they were already doing so much work in Google Classroom and online.
Yeah, our school up here in Oakland, St. Elizabeth, is looking at doing that. They're K to 1 and 2 in the building, and then alternating days with their older kids, 3 through 8.
Yeah, I think that for all of our schools, there's a lot that's still up in the air. But I want to say too that I know that you said you've been crying, and it's been really hard, but Ileana and Anabel, thank you for being here today. And I couldn't tell you've been crying. You look great. You are showing us a lot of energy. You're showing us so much of your determination and how invested you are in your school. So thank you so much for being with us. You know, this is such a stressful time for you, and we're really grateful that you took the time to be on Coffee with CEF. We've got so many people here that are already, you know, supporters of Vision of Hope schools and Catholic schools. And I think everybody on here that is watching today is definitely so invested in the children of the inner cities and the children who are just so in need of the safe and nurturing environments that the Catholic schools offer, and the wraparound services like our principals were talking about, the counseling and all of the support with technology and blended learning and all of these amazing things that the Catholic schools offer. So I wanted to ask Anne if you could tell us a little bit about what do you need right now and how can we help you?
Thanks, Katie. Well, I think there's 3 ways that I would offer out to our community here on this call and more broadly. We're currently, between now and July 31st, we have an active fundraising campaign that we're calling our Resilience Fund. And this is to raise our operation and tuition support for our schools next year. We would welcome, I know there's people on this who have already supported this, but would welcome anybody who hasn't heard of it or is able to contribute. It's the fund to support all 8, but 5 of which are in Los Angeles. The other thing, secondly, is just as I said before, our schools are always looking for leadership at a local level on their development boards. So I really mean it. If you're interested or have any ideas around fundraising or want to get more involved with the 5 schools in LA, Katie's putting up our contact information there. Be happy to direct you. They're all in need of leadership at their development boards. And then the third thing is just, we often encourage people to visit the school, meet the principal, get a tour, and then figure out a way if there's a place for you to volunteer or, help out in the school in any way. We have board members whose children started tutoring programs at St. Ignatius, but there's just different things like that you may come across if you visit one of our schools. I realize in this situation, you can't do much visiting, but certainly reach out to any of those 5 principals. And just thank you for being on this and hearing more about Vision of Hope and who we are, and most importantly, hearing the stories of the Dominican Sisters of Mission San Jose. They really have had a really special ministry to Catholic education, in particular in the Archdiocese of LA, Oakland, and San Francisco. So we're really grateful for that collaboration and partnership.
Thank you so much, Anne. We are running low on time, but I just want to say how grateful I am that you all could join us this morning and be with us to tell us all about the wonderful, truly amazing things that Vision of Hope and the Dominican Sisters are doing for the schools in Los Angeles, and the tremendous work that you, Ileana, and Anabel are doing as principals, and sharing all the wonderful work that our principals, our administrators, and our Catholic school teachers are doing right now, and how you guys have all gone above and beyond to serve the students who are most in need. So as always, I want to thank all of you for all of your support, especially during this time, because obviously these school closures don't mean that there's no school. School is still happening. The teachers are still working, the students are still working, and the parents are still working hard to make sure that their kids are getting the best education that they can. You can visit our website at cefdn.org to help our students at our Catholic schools. And 100% of the funds that you give to the Catholic Education Foundation will fund tuition awards for the neediest students in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. If you would like to learn more about the Dominican Sisters' Vision of Hope, you can visit their website. So again, I want to thank you all for being here today. It's going to be a big deal this next episode because it is our season finale before we go on our Coffee with CEF summer vacation. So thank you again, everybody, for being with us this morning. And hopefully we will see you next week. Goodbye. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.